Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Kotak Securities. We're delighted to host this webinar on health insurance, a requisite in the COVID-19 world. We have a guest speaker, Mr. Mahesh Balasubramanian, MD and CEO of Kotak Mahindra General Insurance Company. We welcome you, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
So I'll start this webinar by asking one very basic question currently. The Indian insurance sector is at the cusp of exponential growth, especially the general insurance sector having a large runaway for growth. What are your views on that?
Well, the growth rate has been pretty robust the last few years, but yes, it has also been slowing down. For instance, when we were in 2015-16, the growth rate was as high as about 30% because government had introduced the crop insurance scheme. Thereafter, the growth rates have been around the region of about 18 to 20. But unfortunately, for the fiscal year FY 19-20, the growth rate has dropped to about 13.5%. But considering where the global economy is, considering how India has performed over the last few years, I think the 13.5 to 14% growth rate is still pretty good. But we do see headwinds coming in going forward because this year is going to be an unprecedented year thanks to the COVID situation globally. So I do expect a lot of headwinds this year. Please understand that the general insurance sector growth is very linked to the basic economic growth of the country. Because what do we insure? We insure plant and machinery, property, right, which is all linked to capital expansion and how companies are expanding capacities, right? Then we insure vehicles, which is nothing but the demand for two-wheelers and four-wheelers in the country. And then we insure individuals for health insurance, for personal accident, etc. We do have travel insurance. And we do have certain specialized line of business like liability insurance or aviation, etc. So if you understand these are the segments which drive growth in the general insurance industry, we need to look at the underlying performance of each of these industries. We all know that capital expansion has been at a very, very low point for the last 4 or 5 years because of the twin balance sheet problem which the Indian economy faced. And thereafter, I think the private sector has not been really expanding capacity. Whatever has been happening is largely due to the government, which has been investing in infrastructure. The automobile industry did have a good growth a couple of years back, but we all know for the last 18 to 24 months, the industry has had serious degrowth. And for probably the first time ever, we saw a landmark event happen in April where there was zero production and zero sales. So by and large, the automobile industry has struggled over the last 18 months. So that is also creating a ripple effect on the insurance industry, general insurance industry. Overall, aviation, we understand how the situation is. It's also been an industry with a lot of M&As and a lot of companies moving out of the space. So I think the general insurance industry's growth will sustain only if the general economic growth continues. On the other side, health insurance, because our population demographics are such that more and more people are today able to afford insurance. More and more people realize the value of health insurance. So the health insurance segment has been growing. So if you ask the growth rate of the health insurance industry has been in the region of about 24-25%, but that also has slightly degrown. I wouldn't say degrown, slightly growth has slowed down in the last 12 to 18 months again. And for the last year, again, the industry barely grew by about 30-odd%. So I think one is seeing a slowdown happening, but I think I do have, I'm quite bullish about health insurance. And while the larger economy will struggle, I think through penetration and through more innovative products, I think I'll be very happy if the industry just about sustains itself in FY 2021 and we are able to maintain a semblance of a positive growth, or even if we are flat, I think that will be quite a good achievement compared to how the larger economy is expected to function. With yesterday, the RBI clearly indicating that we are headed for a negative GDP growth.
Right. And so we see a lot of changes proposed in the increase of FDI limit for the insurance companies. What is your take on that?
Well, FDI basically, let's understand FDI. FDI does two things. It can do two things. One is it can probably come in as capital into the company, which means the capital will be deployed for growth, deployed for capacity expansion, deployed for increasing penetration. That's one way of capital coming in. Second is it may actually end up in changing the equity stake with the promoters where the shareholding pattern of the company changes. So one needs to understand when FDI is coming in, the real FDI which really promotes expansion would be the FDI coming into the company. So before we look at expansion from 49 to 74, Let's look at what happened between 2015 and today, when the FDI was increased from 26% to 49%. FDI is supposed to increase penetration. FDI is supposed to create more jobs. FDI is supposed to expand the market. That's what probably the government would want when they go and get FDI. So if we step back and look at all these metrics, I don't think really much has happened in the last 5 years. The penetration of insurance overall in India has been at about 3% odd. Maybe last year it will probably end up with about 3.6, 3.7%. General insurance penetration has moved up maybe from about 0.7% to maybe about 0.9, 0.95% last year. So all these figures are still very much lower compared to the economies around Asia where we live and for the rest of the globe. Most of the developed economies will be around 10% or double-digit penetration on insurance. So the last 5 years has not really changed the dynamics of the industry dramatically in terms of increasing penetration. Second, in terms of job creation, if I look at specifically the GI sector, we had close to about 1.1 lakh people employed in the GI sector in 2015. In 2019 or 20, that number would probably be about 1.3, 1.35 lakhs. So I wouldn't really believe that increasing FDI will really open the floodgates of FDI coming in and change the dynamics of the industry. In the last 5 years, since 2015, the general insurance industry has probably added about 2,200 crores of FDI coming in. The FDI before that was about 2,200. Today, it's probably about 4,500. So the FDI as a total component of Indian capital in the Indian market is probably about 7%. So I really don't believe that this will definitely change the dynamics of the industry. Yes, it will help some promoters who have probably been invested for a long time. Some amount of shareholding change will happen, where the foreign promoter will move from 26 to 49 to 74. But will it really bring in huge amount of capital? I'm not sure, looking at the past from what has happened between 2015 and 19. In the life insurance segment, hardly any new player has come. Existing players themselves are finding it difficult to make their business viable. Many companies have not even reached break even after so long. So I think even investors will be wary about putting in capital where they're not able to see returns. In the general insurance space, last year, in fact, was a pretty bad year in terms of bottom line. While the total capital invested is close to about 67,000 crores, the profitability was about 680 crores last year. The previous year, it was about 6,000 crores. So even if you take 6,000 crores, that's about 8-9% return on capital. So I think these are the questions one will ask before putting in capital. So just by raising it from 49 to 74, will it serve any dramatic purpose? My personal view is no. It can also lead to complications because India is very clear that some of the regulations say that India believes in Indian management control. So even when it moved from 26 to 49, there were issues around management control. Right now, when it moves from 49 to 74, how will we address the management control? I think that's a question which everybody needs to ask. At 74, are you giving up Indian management control? Is the control going to move to the overseas players who bring in the money? So I think a lot of these questions need to be answered. So am I very gung-ho about it, or am I really bullish that this will change the dynamics of the industry? Personally speaking, I really wouldn't really believe that will happen.
Sure. A lot of our audience is asking that what is the importance of health insurance policy, especially in the current times?
Well, insurance is always a good thing to have because it protects you when you need it most. So I would strongly urge health insurance now, thanks to COVID, everybody is talking about it. But I presume that since I'm on a Kotak Securities platform, most of the customers here or the attendees here would probably be trading and they would be actively participating in the markets, right? We all understand what is risk and what is return, So I think one of the most important things that we all do when we participate in these markets is to manage risk. Let's step back and ask a question. Have we managed our own personal risks properly? I think the answer is pretty no. Very few people have really organized themselves to look at insurance and say, have I mitigated all the risks which I am exposed to as an individual, as a family, or as a corporation? Right? In fact, wealth managers and RMs and a lot of planning happens in terms of financial planning. People normally talk about returns, people talk about loans. One important aspect which is forgotten by people is actually protection. Today we hear about personal protection equipment when hospitals talk about using them for treating patients, a lot of discussion around manufacture of PPEs and making India self-reliant for PPEs. I would probably use a very similar terminology called PPP. Do customers really have a personal protection plan? Have you really protected yourself against all the risks that you're exposed to? Let me list down the risks so that it's easy for people to understand. First and foremost risk is you, the individual, right? Obviously, you are putting in money that you have earned elsewhere into the markets, or you're expecting returns on income generated elsewhere. Who's generating that income? It's the individual. Have you protected yourself? Which also means that do you have a health insurance plan for you? Do you have a term insurance in case something happens to you? Is your family able to lead a lifestyle which was similar to what they had when you were around, right? Have you protected your home? I would have you protect your vehicle because the government says that you'll have to mandatorily buy insurance, right? So I think customers need to evaluate and look at their own personal profiles and say whether they have done justice to mitigating all the risks in their life. So I would strongly advocate customers to do something called a personal protection plan. Look at your term insurance, look at health insurance, look at home insurance, look at insurance for all the things in your house, for all the things that you use. If you're a professional, look at professional indemnity insurance. All those will help you manage risks. Now, coming to health insurance. In these times today, we are in fact, industry is exposed to COVID claims. The total number of claims which has hit the general insurance industry so far is about 4,500 claims. More will come. The average claim size is anywhere between 2 to 3 lakhs. Hopefully that figure will go down. But yeah, some patients are even exposed to 10 lakh, 8 lakh risks in the case of comorbidity. Comorbidity in the sense I had a heart ailment, I have diabetes, I also have COVID now. So that leads to complications and the size of the medical expenses exponentially increases. So just imagine if each of us, any of us have to get any of these, forget even the critical illness which may hit you, like a cardiac problem or a heart failure or whatever. Even these normal COVID, the expenses can be anywhere between 2.5 to 3 lakhs. Are you adequately covered? I think that's a question you need to ask. So a health insurance plan needs to satisfy 3-4 criteria. It should be able to protect you against normal hospitalization expenses, which is where I would say take a health indemnity product, a product with at least a 5 lakh or a 10 lakh cover, and a product for the entire family, what we would call the family floater. Make sure that your wife, your children, your parents, all of them are covered in a plan. So that's a basic health indemnity plan to take care of normal hospitalization expenses. The second plan I would look at is a critical illness plan, because today India is also the center of growth, huge growth in diseases which are lifestyle-led diseases like heart attacks, like strokes. You have diabetes, which is really causing a lot of other morbidity in human beings. So India really is virtually exposed to a lot of these lifestyle diseases. And the treatment for each of these diseases can actually set you back by, again, easily about 4-5 lakhs or even much higher, plus loss of income. In case you have a cardiac problem, you got to sit at home. You may actually have to change your lifestyle. You may have to change your job. A lot of other complications come in as well. So the next important product that people should have is a critical illness product. That should be at least about 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs, depending on your income. It can be even higher. And that's something that customers should definitely pay for it and take it. It is slightly expensive compared to health indemnity. But I think if you look at the premium you're paying and the cover you're getting, I think it's still extremely good value for money. The third product I would like to look at is what we call super top-up. Basically, this can take care of extreme exigencies where probably, while the normal cover will be 5 lakhs, if you're employed in an organization, you may get your group medical through the employer-employee. That roughly in India is about 3.5-4 lakh rupees. So God forbid, if you have a serious ailment, how do you really take care of the amount beyond the 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs? That's where a super top-up product comes in. I would look at that as well. So a combination of these three, along with a personal accident, because again, we are all traveling in public transport. We all move around quite a bit. And any of us can be exposed to accidents while we are traveling or when we are at home, climbing stairs, in a lift, whatever, So it's important to cover yourself for personal accident as well. So I would say a comprehensive personal protection plan for the self would mean term insurance, health indemnity, super top-up, critical illness, and personal accident. You need to probably have a combination of all these products so that you can rest home peacefully, go home peacefully sleeping that, look here, I have taken care of all the eventualities. And it's a good investment to make, because if and when a claim happens, I think you'll really thank your stars that you have taken a sensible decision at an important phase of your life. Hope that answers your question.
It does, it does. So we see a lot of benefits, but I also like to ask that, are there any challenges or silver linings for this sector currently in the times of COVID-19?
Well, can you repeat that, please?
We see a lot of benefits, as explained by you, for the health insurance policies. Do we see any challenges or silver linings for this sector currently in the times of COVID-19?
No, so for us, the challenges right now during the COVID period has been we have been quite able to meet the challenges from a company perspective, from general insurance service perspective. I think the work from home option has worked very well for all the companies. And I think yesterday we had an industry discussion. I think people have overcome the challenges very, very nicely, and companies are issuing policies. The general insurance sector, by and large, has been working on digital initiatives over the last 4 or 5 years, and everybody is seeing the benefit of it. Today, I think most insurance companies, you can buy a policy sitting at home. Your agent can advise you on the phone. He can send you a link of something, and you can make the payment, and the policy can be issued like an airline ticket as you sit at home. So I think digitization has really helped insurance companies meet these challenges, and they have been absolutely able to service SLAs. Service levels have been very, very good in these times across most companies, more so at Kotak General Insurance. Ability to issue policies, ability to settle claims, ability to come and do surveys in case something has gone wrong to your vehicle. I think overall the industry has coped up pretty well, and I think most insurance companies have done a commendable job. If you ask me, that's a silver lining in terms of service levels. And we hope and pray that once the lockdown situation improves, the service levels can only improve across the industry, and customers will benefit more from better products, more innovative products. In fact, many companies have launched a COVID cover in the last 15-20 days, even though there's been a lockdown. Even new products have been coming in the market. So I think these are the silver linings. Industry is well poised to service customers. Industry is coming up with more and more innovative products. In fact, the regulator had approved Sandbox as an initiative. Almost all general insurance companies have launched some product or the other. In fact, Kotak General Insurance has launched 3 products in the Sandbox. We have a Sandbox where we are doing an initiative where customers will get wearables. We will supply wearables along with the health insurance policy, and that wearable will tell you your physical activity in terms of what's your heart rate, what's your number of steps you have taken. If you have done any running, you'll be able to measure that. We've also tied up with a company called Goki, who's our partner in this. Goki is also going to advise customers on nutrition. They conduct a lot of programs on their platform for fitness, for health, for instructions on how to stay fit. I think a lot of this is coming in because insurance companies are moving away from a philosophy of settling claims to working towards the well-being of the individual. From a company perspective, what's the best case scenario for me? I have customers who don't make claims on me, right? So how do I make sure that they don't make claims? The best way to ensure that is actually by keeping them healthy. So many insurance companies are engaging with customers where they are getting involved in the health activities of the customer. They are helping the customer get advice, seek assistance to maintain a balanced diet, to look at even diseases like diabetes if somebody's got. There are packages today where platforms help you control your diabetes. They give you good advice on how to control your sugar level, what should be your activity level to ensure that your sugar is stable. Similarly, for any and every ailment, today insurance companies along with partners are actually working towards better engagement with customers and participating in the customer's lifestyle and life so that we are able to work with him in keeping him and his family fit, which is the best thing that can happen to both the individual and the company. It's an absolutely good win-win situation. So if you ask me, these are the various developments and silver linings. I think the industry is moving in the right direction in terms of providing solutions rather than products. I think that evolution will benefit everybody in the short run and definitely in the long run.
On this line only, I'll ask you a question that what is the emergence of the new category in fintech called InsurTech? And how is it disrupting the brick and mortar model of selling and servicing the customers? What
Yeah.
is in for
So
the customers? We
yeah,
basically.
I'm glad you asked this question. See, I think technology today is all pervasive, and everybody is looking at how do you use technology to blend or change your business model. So earlier in the era where technology was not so prevalent, the engagement between the customer and the individual by the customer and the insurance company was very limited. We used to write a policy and then probably exchange some mails, and thereafter there's a claim, we would go and settle the claim. But today, technology helps us participate in the life of the customer. Let's take various examples. Let's take probably a car. Today, there is possible to put a device in the car where I can put what is called a telematic device, which can be plugged into the car, and it will tell you whether you're driving safely, what is the speed at which you're driving, what is your cornering speed, are you shifting gears in a jerky manner, is your car running properly. It feeds data. It picks up data from the sensors, pick up data from the way the car is being driven, and it's all fed into a system. And the system is put back to the customer in terms of an application, a mobile app, which gives you a driving score. It keeps monitoring how you're driving, what's happening to your car, and it also tells you where all the car has gone, because it has also got a GPRS which tracks the movement of the car. Let's say I have a daughter who's going to school, and I have a driver with whom I'm sending the car. I would definitely like to know whether my daughter has reached safely, whether the driver has driven well, or if there's anything problem in the car, I would like to know it. So I think these kind of devices are helping us embed ourselves in the life of the customer. Of course, with the customer consent, because we need customer consent to do that. So that's a simple telematic device in a car which tells you how good your driving behavior is. Suppose there are three individuals the insurance company is insured. One person is driving absolutely safely and he has a driving score of, let's say, 9 on 10 or 10 on 10. Then obviously we would definitely reward the customer better in terms of better pricing and probably better features. Whereas a customer whose score is 0, which means he's a high-risk individual who drives his car very rashly, and obviously that will affect the pricing of the customer. So customers have a lot to gain. It gives them a dashboard. It gives them a monitoring device to tell them how good their driving habits are. We could also train the customers who probably are today not good drivers, but we can help them improve their driving skills. And customers who have an incentive to actually drive their car well. So that's an example of how InsurTech can actually help improve the quality of products we offer on the motor insurance side. Now, coming to the health insurance, I spoke about wearables. Today, I think all of us today, the penetration of wearables is pretty high. India is becoming more and more conscious in terms of health and fitness. We all know the number of marathons which are getting organized. Of course, with COVID coming in, there is a halt to that. But I know every suburb in the city, in every large city today has a marathon. Bombay, I think, has about 20, 30 marathons happening every year. So more and more people are getting conscious about fitness. More and more people are going out for walking. They're all worried about what you call the lifestyle, and they all want to maintain a good lifestyle. This is where a Fitbit or a health wearable, if it's integrated with an insurance offering, it does magic in terms of understanding the customer and again incentivizing the customer, advising the customer to stay fit, helping him on nutrition, helping him manage an ailment if he has got, monitoring BMI, providing advice on what kind of exercises he needs to do, monitoring activity. In fact, there are devices today which are monitoring blood pressure, which are monitoring heart rates, which are monitoring temperatures, right? All this, if it's fed back to the insurer, he's able to make sure that you are staying healthy and can really connect with your personal life. Again, if you are healthy and if you really, really are maintaining an excellent lifestyle, I would probably reward that customer with a slightly lower premium or some other extra benefits compared to a customer whose BMI is very high and who's actually a potentially higher risk. So it also helps us segment customers and segregate the difference between good risk and bad risk and probably offer customers products and solutions which are in line with our risk understanding of them. This is health insurance. Again, InsurTech playing a big role. Health insurance also is seeing telemedicine, doctor on call, virtual doctor. There are some wonderful developments which have happened in China. A famous company called Ping An has done something brilliant where they have created an entire ecosystem of doctors, of clinics, of diagnostic centers, of nutritionists, etc. It's an ecosystem which has got created, and insurance is part of that ecosystem. For instance, tomorrow an insurer in India could be your port of call if you're not well. You want to go to a doctor, you moved into a new city, you don't know anybody there, you have an insurance policy, you call up the company, and the company can actually assign you a doctor or give you a reference where, or they can have a doctor on their own panel and they can advise you for immediate medical attention. So that's how technology can change the way companies interact with their customers and help them manage their health or manage their mobility. Now coming to home insurance, again, if you have a home which is got cameras, which has got sensors, which is completely wired, I think you may be at work, we'll still monitor the house. If you have an accident, if you have a fire, an alarm can be triggered. It can inform the nearest railway fire station. It can inform the insurance company, right? A lot of things can happen. We can even, companies can send drones immediately to monitor the situation. So I think a lot of things can happen if information is available to us as to what's happening in our lives. And that's where the marriage of insurance and technology has created this wonderful platform called InsurTech. And globally, a lot of things are happening. And I'm very sure India will start embracing some of these products. Some of them are already out in India. Some of them will probably come in at a later stage. In fact, one interesting product launched by a few companies is pay-as-you-drive insurance policy, where we link the insurance premium to the number of kilometers you have done. And in a month, if you have not used the car, then you don't pay premium for those number of days. So these are the kinds of innovations which are happening. We at Kotak General have already launched a couple of products keeping these innovations in mind. We have some more to come in. But by and large, the industry will use technology to provide better solutions, offer better pricing, provide innovative covers, and make sure that we all build ecosystems where the customers' life can be made easy.
That was a really good explanation. There are a lot of customers asking this question that does the current health insurance covers the COVID insurance as well, or do we need to separately? There are a lot of insurance companies selling COVID insurance plans and a lot of insurance ads. What is basic COVID insurance covered under our insurance policy?
Yeah, a very good question. I think we have also been getting a lot of queries like this. Let me very emphatically clarify that if you have a health indemnity policy from any company in this country, you are covered for COVID. Because the health indemnity policy covers all hospitalization expenses for any ailment whatsoever, right? So whether you have dengue, whether you have had a cardiac arrest, whether you have fallen down and had an accident, any hospitalization expenses is covered, and therefore COVID is also covered. So if you have taken a health insurance policy, either through your employer-employee or individually from an insurance company, please be rest assured that you are covered. But how much are you covered? It is covered to the extent of the policy limit, which is what we call sum insured. So if you have taken a 2 lakh policy, it is covered up to 2 lakhs. If you have a 1 lakh policy, it is covered up to 1 lakh. If you have taken a 7 lakh policy, it is covered up to 7 lakhs. So the limitation is the extent of cover you have taken. Plus, some policies may have sublimits in terms of room rent. Some companies have a policy where the room rent is a percentage of the sum insured. Someone may say it's 1%, someone may be it's 2%. So if you have a policy of 5 lakh rupees, if the insurance company says that the room rent sublimit is 1%, then up to 5,000 rupees per day, room rent is what you'll get, right? So some of these are small conditions, but be rest assured that if you have taken a policy, absolutely it is covered. Now, then why are other companies launching COVID covers separately? I think the covers which are coming in by and large are what we call fixed benefit cover. Now, there are two kinds of insurance policies. One is an indemnity policy, where there is a limit set up for you to use the expenses, right? For you to use the policy up to the cap of the policy limit, right? So if you have a health problem, up to 5 lakhs you can use, right? Whereas a fixed benefit product means if you contract that particular ailment, if it's a COVID cover, the moment you have a COVID positive situation, the policy will trigger and the entire amount will be paid. Suppose you have taken a 25,000 rupee cover for COVID or a 1 lakh rupee cover for COVID. This is, if it's a fixed benefit cover, the moment you get COVID, 1 lakh rupees will be paid to you or 25,000 rupees will be paid to you, which is the value of the policy. These are called fixed benefit covers, right? So the products which are coming in by and large are fixed benefit covers. You can take them as well because it gives you because what happens if you are quarantined at home? Let's say you're not hospitalized, but you're COVID positive and you're quarantined at home. then the normal health indemnity policy may not trigger because it only provides for hospitalization expenses. But if you have taken a fixed benefit product, even if you are quarantined at home, the fact that you have been tested positive and there is evidence to prove that, the policy terms will kick in and you'll automatically get the amount that you have contracted with the insurance company. So that's why some of them are launching a COVID product. If you buy it, yeah, it is beneficial. I'm not saying you should not buy it, but is it absolutely essential? And therefore, should you worry about the fact that you didn't take a COVID cover? If you have an existing health insurance policy, no problem. But if you don't have one, please go out there and please take a health indemnity policy or go and take at least a COVID cover if you're so worried about COVID. But underlying thing is get yourself insured.
So we're also receiving a lot of questions basis age. Like a lot of customers are asking that I'm 66 years old. Should I buy a COVID insurance policy? I'm above 75 years. Should I buy a COVID-19 policy? Is any age concern restricted to the policy?
Well, it all depends on the policy conditions. Different companies have different ages with which they enroll their customers. There is always a maximum age limit before you enter the policy. So I think one needs to look at the policy terms and conditions. It's very difficult to say yes or no. Some companies may take in customers even at 70, 75. Some insurance companies may have a limit of 60 or 65. It all depends on the product which has been filed by the company with the regulator and what's their offering in the market. But will you get a cover? You will get a cover. But will that cover be in a health indemnity situation? The higher the age limit, the higher the premium. For COVID, some companies may have a flat rate where irrespective of whatever age, the premium can be same. Some companies may have a graded structure where higher the age limit, the higher the chances of getting COVID. So the premium may be higher. I think it's important to understand the policy, but are covers available? I think they could be available. One needs to check.
And what is the top-up in a health policy? How does it actually work? The exclusion in it? Can we buy a top-up from any company? How does the top-up works?
Yeah. Again, top-up is a very, very innovative and very good product from a customer perspective. Let me put it this way. What are the chances of an individual getting hospitalized and spending 1 or 2 days in the hospital and having a bill of 50,000 rupees or a lakh of rupees vis-a-vis the chances of a person getting a cardiac arrest and having to spend, or cancer, God forbid, and having to spend 10, 20 lakhs, So obviously the probability of the first event is far more higher than the probability of the second event. And insurance is all about mathematics and probability science. It is a probability science. When I put out a product in the market, I'm assuming that 100 customers will pay me premium, right? And out of the 100 customers, maybe 10 or 20 or whatever percentage will make a claim. Each of them will have a particular value for the claim. And the number of customers claimed multiplied by the value of the claim gives me the total payout I'm making towards claims. Over and above that, I have my expenses for distribution and my own company expenses and my margin. That's how a product is created, right? So obviously, when I'm giving a product for 5 lakhs, the pricing is different vis-a-vis when I'm giving a product where the limit is 15 lakhs, right? Because the chances of a 2 lakh, 3 lakh cover being used is far higher than the chances of a 30 lakh cover being used. So this is how insurance companies look at their products. Now, from a customer perspective, how does it help? I think if you are confident that the first 3-4 lakhs, which is what we call the operating layer in a policy, where the propensity to claim is far higher, right? If that you can protect through either your own funds or through your employer-employee policy or a policy that you have already taken. Let's say that policy is about 5 lakhs you have taken. You're paying X amount of premium and you already covered yourself for 5 lakhs. Now, should you buy another policy which is for 30 lakhs or should you buy a top-up? Now, the question is, if you go and buy a top-up, which means I'm looking at a 50 lakh cover, but in the normal course, I think I'm going to need only a 5 lakh cover. I will require this extra 45 lakhs in case something really, really bad happens to me, like a cancer or some other chronic ailment. Then you buy a policy which comes in only if your claim amount exceeds 5 lakhs, right? So these are called top-up because it sits on top of your basic policy, which is normal health indemnity. It sits on top of a layer which you are willing to either fund yourself or fund it through some other policy. So this is a second layer in a policy. That's why it's called a top-up, right? Now, the top-up policies are normally very cheap because the probability of that occurring is actually very, very low. So therefore, the pricing for the incremental layer between, let's say, 5 and 15 lakhs or 5 and 20 lakhs, let's say you're buying a top up for 25 lakhs, which means 5 lakhs base cover, another 20 lakhs, which is you're buying, so that you have a total cover of 25 lakhs. The incremental 20 lakhs pricing will actually be extremely low compared to linearly extrapolating the policy for 5 lakhs. If a policy for 5 lakhs costs 5,000, it does not mean that the incremental layer will be 4 times the cost of that policy. It will actually be equal to that cost or even lower than that, right? So that is the beauty of the top up. It is structured in a way where it focuses on the probability of the event occurring, at the same time protects the individual. So for a very marginal price that you pay, you as an individual are protecting yourself against the worst calamities or worst eventualities. So from a customer perspective, it makes enormous sense. For an insurance company, it works well because that's not, normally people do not hit that layer. But if and when they hit the layer, they have collected premium from a whole lot of customers and they can take care of the claims which are coming in. So it's a wonderful product to take care of those very large risks, which otherwise can actually set you back probably by a few years, or even sometimes families get into huge distress because there is a sudden ailment which is coming, which is washed away the entire savings or livelihood of the family. It's a wonderful value for money product.
Yeah, right. A lot of questions people are asking that should they, if they're considering COVID-19 policies, should they actually go for a family insurance plan or go for individual plans, which would be a better option to opt for?
Well, as I said, most of the COVID policies in the market today, from whatever we are aware of, about 5-6 companies have launched them, are fixed benefit covers. So I think since it's a fixed benefit cover, I think, I don't know, the floater options have already been given there, but yeah. You can, since it's a fixed benefit cover, you can buy it for 3-4 members in your family. So you can either go for a floater or for an individual cover, depending on what's available in the market. From whatever I understand, I don't think too many floaters are available as of now. But yeah, companies are launching as we speak. So a lot of activity is happening in the industry. But yeah, since it's a fixed benefit cover, you just buy it for all members of your family.
Right. And what is the penetration level of health insurance policies in India?
Well, actually speaking, again, you asked a very important question. Despite all the awareness levels over the years, I think the penetration has been quite low. Just to give you the exact figures, last year, which is FY20, the entire insurance industry, total premium was about 50,000 crores. Right? 50,000 crores on a GDP of this country of 200 lakh crores gives you that health insurance penetration in India is 0.5%. That's abysmally low. 60 to 70% of hospitalization expenses today in the country are incurred by what we call out-of-pocket expenses. What does this mean? If there are 100 patients going into a hospital, almost 70-75 of them actually don't have a policy and they pay from their own personal pocket, right? So I think the level of penetration in India is very, very low. There is also under-penetration because for a population of this size, the average policy is also very low. Many people are even today having 2 lakh, 3 lakh policies. Now, 2 lakh, 3 lakh is hardly sufficient because the medical escalation in India or the medical inflation has always been double-digit over the last few years. So the cost of medication is only increasing because better drugs are coming out in the market. More sophisticated means of treatment are coming in. Non-invasive procedures are coming in, which are pretty expensive. So I think while the medical bills have been going up, the insurance penetration has not kept pace with that, both in terms of number of people getting insured and the average value for which they are getting insured. So I think there is a huge pent-up demand, and that's why we are seeing a lot of awareness. In fact, very happy to say that in the last 30 days, Kotak General Insurance health indemnity business has actually grown by about 250% compared to the same period last year. So there is a huge amount of activity out there. Customers are now realizing that these are not theoretical risks. The whole world is actually getting affected by one virus, and it's a huge setback. What has started off as a science problem and a biological issue has now become a global economic issue. So I think people should not underestimate the need for insurance. So please go. If you haven't insured, this is the right time to do it. Speak to either of us directly. Speak to Kotak Securities RMs, your colleagues there. Please go and get yourself insured. India is hugely uninsured, and I think this is a good time to correct it. And as we said, they're all very highly digitized. So you don't have to worry about meeting an agent and listening to him and having yourself exposed to face-to-face interaction. So you can absolutely do it sitting at home. Just call up your RM or have somebody call you, or call up the toll-free line of the insurance company, speak to them, and you can buy the policy. So India has a hugely underinsured market, and this is probably the best time to correct it.
So considering the rate of cases increasing in US, what is there any future loss ratio for the insurance sector in India if the count reaches just the way it increased in US?
Well, so far, honestly, the general insurance industry and health insurance industry have not had too much of reasons to worry whether health claims will really hit their bottom line because the penetration has been very low. So as I said, the total number of COVID cases in India as of day for yesterday was about 110,000. The total number of claims which have been lodged with the general insurance companies is about 4,000 odd, out of which about 1,500 have been settled. The balance patients are still in the hospitals. So I think we are not too worried about claims because I think Government of India has stepped in, and the insurance penetration also is very low. Out of the total population of 1.34 billion that we have, we hardly have insurance penetration of about 115 million. No? So I think the insurance penetration being very low is probably one of the reasons why the claims have not really hit insurance companies so far. Plus, the government is doing a tremendous job of treatment in government hospitals. So I don't think we worry ourselves much from an insurance perspective. Will it be a huge setback for us in terms of claims? That worry is not there. But yes, if penetration increases in future, we may have. But I'm saying that's still a road which is very, very far away. So I don't think we need to worry about that in this country. No.
Right. I think I'll just take up one last question. If a person takes a family floater, what happens to the policy after he or she demises?
Well, basically, there are nominees to the policy, right? And if you have taken a family floater and there are 4 people covered and one person passes away, I think you can now, when the policy comes up for renewal or immediately, you can inform the insurance company and they will again restructure the policy and make sure the policy benefits continue for the individual, for the rest of the members in the portfolio. So I don't think there's any problem out there. You can safely assure that it will continue. As far as the payouts are concerned, also there are nominees in the policy. So if a payout has to be made, even though the person who's insured has died, the payouts will go to the nominee. And if 4 people are on a floater and one person passes away, the policy will automatically get converted to the balance people who are there, and their policy will continue. And the time of the endorsements can be made and changes can be made to the policy to reflect the new set of people or the remaining set of people who are in the policy. So I don't think it's something that you need to worry about. But please inform your insurance company. If you don't inform your insurance company, then you might get into trouble. But if you inform them, the endorsements can be made and things will be quite smooth for you.
That was, thanks a lot. I think all the inputs were so. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I only hope and pray that more and more people take insurance to take care of themselves and their families.
I thank you on behalf of Kotak Securities. I thank my audience for their participation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thank you.